Let me ask you something. When was the last time you thought about whether what's sitting on your plate right now might actually be working against you? Not in some vague, abstract way, but in a very real, very physical way that is quietly raising your blood pressure, increasing your risk of cancer, interfering with your medications, or slowly damaging your brain. I know that might sound alarming, and I'm not here to frighten you. That's the last thing I want to do. What I want to do today is have an honest, caring conversation, the kind you'd have with a good friend who happens to know a lot about health and aging. Because here's the truth. The body you have at 60, 65, or 70 is genuinely different from the body you had at 40. It processes things differently. It responds to food differently. And certain foods that were merely not great for you decades ago can become genuinely dangerous now. Today, we're going to walk through 7 specific foods that many people your age eat every single day, sometimes without thinking twice. And I'm going to explain exactly why they can be so harmful as we get older and what you can do instead. This isn't about fear, it's about knowledge. And once you understand the why behind these warnings, making different choices feels much less like sacrifice and much more like taking care of yourself. Let's start with one that almost everyone keeps in their fridge. The first food on our list is processed meat. We're talking about bacon, hot dogs, deli meats, sausage, ham, salami, and pepperoni. The kinds of foods that have been part of American lunches and breakfasts for generations. Now, here's something most people your age don't know. The World Health Organization has officially classified processed meat as carcinogenic to humans, placing it in Group 1, the highest cancer risk category. And the research behind that classification found that eating just 50 grams of processed meat daily, that's roughly 1 hot dog, or a few strips of bacon, increases the relative risk of colorectal cancer by 18%. Now this might surprise you. You might be thinking, wait, it's in the same category as cigarettes? And technically, yes. But here's the important nuance. The classification describes the strength of the scientific evidence, not the level of risk. So it's not saying that eating bacon is as dangerous as smoking. It's saying the evidence that processed meat causes colorectal cancer is equally solid and reliable. And why does this matter so much, after 60 specifically? Because as we age, our digestive system naturally becomes more vulnerable. The lining of the colon changes. Our immune system is less equipped to fight off cell damage, and the cumulative effects of a lifetime of food choices become much more apparent. Processed meats are treated with curing agents, nitrates or nitrites, to extend their shelf life and change their flavor. These processes can lead to the formation of chemicals called N-nitroso compounds, which are known to be carcinogenic. So what's the better choice? Freshly grilled chicken, turkey, fish, or plant-based proteins like lentils and beans give you all the protein your body needs without these risks. And if you truly love a good deli sandwich every now and then, that's okay. The word to focus on is occasionally, not daily. Your doctor can give you personalized guidance based on your own health history. The second food we need to talk about is high-sodium processed and packaged foods. And I want to be very specific here, because this isn't just about the salt shaker on your dinner table. The real danger is in the hidden sodium inside canned soups, frozen dinners, sauces, condiments, and packaged snacks. A single can of soup can contain well over 800 milligrams of sodium. One frozen meal can push past 1,000 milligrams. And most people eat several of these things in a single day without realizing it. Here's why this hits so much harder after 60. The World Health Organization recommends a daily sodium intake of less than 2,000 milligrams to prevent chronic diseases. And clear evidence shows that high sodium intake is directly associated with elevated blood pressure, which in turn increases the risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke, even in adults who don't already have hypertension. And aging makes this worse in a very specific way. Research has shown that elderly adults experience a higher incidence of stroke and poorer functional recovery compared to younger individuals, leading to elevated mortality rates in the older population. In other words, a stroke at 65 is far more devastating than a stroke at 40. The recovery is harder, the damage lasts longer, and the risk of it happening again goes up significantly. But here's the good news, the encouraging part. A 2023 study from Northwestern University found that reducing your salt intake by just 1 teaspoon a day can lower your blood pressure as effectively as a commonly prescribed blood pressure medication. 1 teaspoon. Not a radical overhaul of your diet, just mindful, consistent reduction. The practical solution is simple. Start reading labels. Look for the sodium content per serving, and aim for products with under 400 milligrams per serving. Cook at home more often when you can, using herbs and spices like garlic, lemon, rosemary, and cumin to bring flavor to your food without the sodium. Your heart and your brain will thank you for it. Now here's the third food, and this one really surprises people. We're talking about ultra-processed foods. And I don't just mean junk food. I mean packaged cereals, flavored crackers, instant noodles, store-bought cookies, fast food, frozen pizzas, and anything with a long list of ingredients that you can't recognize or pronounce. Here's what the research is telling us, and it's genuinely striking. A 2024 study published in Neurology, the medical journal of the American Academy of Neurology, found that a 10% increase in the amount of ultra-processed foods eaten was associated with a 16% higher risk of cognitive impairment. People who ate more ultra-processed foods also had a higher risk of stroke. Read that again. A 16% higher risk of memory and thinking problems. This isn't a small effect, and it's not just one study. A 2022 study following 10,000 people found that those who ate the most ultra-processed foods had a 25% faster rate of executive function decline and a 28% faster rate of overall cognitive impairment compared with those who ate the least. Why does this happen? Scientists believe several mechanisms are at work simultaneously. Ultra-processed foods are extremely high in added sugars, salt, and unhealthy fats, while being very low in fiber and nutrients. They promote chronic inflammation throughout the body, including in the brain. They disrupt the gut microbiome, which research increasingly shows has a direct connection to brain health, and they drive blood sugar instability, which over time causes real measurable damage to brain tissue. Studies have shown that replacing just 10% of ultra-processed food intake with an equivalent amount of whole, minimally processed foods is estimated to be associated with a 19% lower risk of dementia. Think about that. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to eat only salads. Just replacing a small portion of what you eat with real whole food makes a meaningful difference. Swap packaged snacks for fresh fruit, nuts, or yogurt. Replace instant oatmeal loaded with sugar for plain rolled oats with some berries and a drizzle of honey. Small, real changes. That's all it takes to start moving in the right direction. The fourth food we need to discuss is sugary drinks. And this includes sodas, fruit punches, sweetened iced teas, energy drinks, and even mini bottled fruit juices that seem healthy but are loaded with sugar. Now here's something most people your age don't realize. Liquid sugar is processed by your body very differently from the sugar in whole fruit. When you eat an apple, the fiber slows down how quickly the sugar enters your bloodstream. But when you drink a glass of orange juice or a can of soda, there's no fiber, and the sugar hits your bloodstream almost immediately, causing a rapid spike in blood glucose and insulin. Meta-analyses have confirmed that sugar-sweetened beverage consumption is linked to a 26% increased risk of diabetes and a 20% higher risk of metabolic syndrome. Another analysis found that an additional serving of sugary drinks per day raised stroke risk by 13% and heart attack risk by 22%. And the effects go beyond the heart. A 2024 analysis published in Frontiers in Public Health looked specifically at adults age 60 and older, examining the global burden of cardiovascular disease attributable to high sugar-sweetened beverage intake. The researchers found that cardiovascular disease deaths and disability increased exponentially with age, peaking at 85 years old. In other words, the older you are, the more damage sugary drinks do to your heart. Here's the practical truth. Your body doesn't register liquid calories the same way it registers food calories. So drinking 2 glasses of juice in the morning doesn't make you less hungry. It just adds all that sugar on top of whatever you eat next. Over time, that pattern drives up inflammation, contributes to belly fat, stresses the pancreas, and raises your blood pressure. What should you drink instead? Water is always the best answer. And if plain water feels boring, try adding slices of lemon, lime, cucumber, or fresh mint. Sparkling water with a splash of juice gives you the fizzy feel without the sugar load. Unsweetened herbal teas are wonderful too. These swaps sound small, but over weeks and months, they add up to something genuinely significant. The fifth food on our list is one that almost no one expects to hear, and that is grapefruit. And before you say anything, yes, grapefruit is a healthy, nutritious citrus fruit packed with vitamin C, antioxidants, and fiber. Under normal circumstances, it's an excellent choice. But after 60, something very specific and very important changes the picture entirely. As we get older, most of us are taking one or more prescription medications. Statins for cholesterol, blood pressure medications, anti-anxiety medications, anticoagulants. And here's the problem. Grapefruit contains natural compounds called furanocoumarins, which block a critical enzyme in your gut called CYP3A4. The FDA has identified that grapefruit and grapefruit juice can affect the way your medicines work. This food and drug interaction can cause serious problems, and the severity of the interaction can vary depending on the person, the drug, and the amount of grapefruit consumed. When this enzyme is blocked, your body can't break down the medication properly, which means far more of the drug enters your bloodstream than intended. Since grapefruit permanently disables the CYP3A4 enzyme, the body must produce entirely new enzymes to restore normal function. This interaction is particularly dangerous because elevated statin levels dramatically increase the risk of rhabdomyolysis, a serious condition where muscle tissue breaks down rapidly, which can lead to kidney failure. Researchers have identified more than 85 drugs that interact adversely with grapefruit. Some of the most common include cholesterol-lowering statins like Lipitor and Zocor, blood pressure medications, specifically calcium channel blockers, and anti-anxiety medications. And here's what makes this so tricky. It's not just grapefruit, it's any amount of grapefruit, including the juice. And the interaction can persist for up to 24 to 72 hours after you've eaten the fruit. So having grapefruit for breakfast and taking your medication at night doesn't make you safe. What should you do? Simply check with your pharmacist or doctor about whether your specific medications interact with grapefruit. Many people find they can switch to a different medication that doesn't have this interaction and continue enjoying grapefruit safely. This is a conversation that takes 5 minutes and could genuinely protect your health. The sixth food we need to address is refined white carbohydrates. White bread, white rice, white pasta, sugary pastries, and highly processed cereals. Now, I'm not about to tell you to never eat bread again. That's not realistic. And honestly, it's not necessary. But here's what's happening in your body when refined carbs become a staple of your daily diet. Especially after 60, white bread is rapidly digested, causing sharp spikes in blood glucose and insulin levels. Refined grains can promote systemic inflammation, and research shows this can exacerbate muscle loss in older adults, a condition called sarcopenia, which is the gradual loss of muscle mass that comes with aging. And the inflammation piece is particularly important. Refined carbohydrates such as white bread, sugary cereals, and pastry lose their inherent fiber, vitamins, and minerals during processing. These foods promote rapid blood sugar spikes, resulting in a cascade of inflammatory responses that can hasten cellular aging. When your blood sugar spikes repeatedly throughout the day, every time you eat white toast in the morning, white rice at lunch, a cookie in the afternoon, and pasta for dinner, your pancreas works overtime pumping out insulin. Over years, this pattern leads to insulin resistance, which is a precursor to type 2 diabetes. And in older adults, poorly controlled blood sugar is also directly connected to cardiovascular disease, kidney problems, and cognitive decline. Research has found that eating a diet high in foods with a higher glycemic index, including refined starches and refined sugars, is linked not only to increased markers of inflammation, but to higher mortality from inflammation-related diseases in older people. The good news here is that the swap is genuinely delicious and easy. Whole grain bread, brown rice, quinoa, oats, and sweet potatoes all give you the same satisfying carbohydrate energy, but they release it slowly, keeping your blood sugar stable, reducing inflammation, and feeding the good bacteria in your gut. Try making one swap at a time. Start with breakfast. Replace your white toast with a slice of whole grain bread. That single change, repeated daily, makes a real difference. And now we come to the seventh food on our list, and this one requires the most careful, nuanced conversation. because it involves something that's deeply woven into the social fabric of American life. We're talking about alcohol. Let me be very clear about what the research actually says, because this is an area where there is genuine scientific debate. Some older studies suggested moderate drinking had cardiovascular benefits, but the most recent and comprehensive evidence is pointing in a different direction, especially for people over 60. Here's the biological reality first. As we age, the liver becomes less efficient at processing alcohol. The body contains less water, which means alcohol becomes more concentrated in the bloodstream, and the brain becomes more sensitive to alcohol's effects. As individuals age, their bodies metabolize alcohol more slowly, leading to higher blood alcohol levels and an increased susceptibility to the negative effects of alcohol, such as impaired balance and coordination. And the falls risk is not a small thing. Adults aged 60 and older suffer the greatest number of fatal falls. Nearly 1/3 of older adults who fall suffer moderate to severe injuries, including broken hips and head trauma. A broken hip at 70 is not just painful, it can be life-altering, and in some cases, life-ending. And alcohol, even in moderate amounts, meaningfully increases the risk of that kind of fall. But there's another layer here that many people haven't thought about. One study found that 1 in 5 older adult drinkers took medications that could have negative interactions with alcohol. Alcohol can render some medications ineffective, intensify certain side effects, and increase drug toxicity. Medications that can dangerously interact with alcohol include acetaminophen, sleeping pills, pain medication, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and cold and allergy medicines. The potential adverse reactions of combining alcohol and medication include elevated blood alcohol levels, disrupted drug metabolism, diminished medication efficacy, and worsened side effects, ranging from fluctuations in blood pressure and insomnia to dizziness and impaired coordination that can lead to falls and accidents. According to the 2022 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, about 20% of adults aged 60 to 64 say they binge drink. That's 1 in 5 people in that age group. And binge drinking in your 60s and 70s carries risks that simply don't compare to binge drinking at 25. This doesn't mean you can never have a glass of wine with dinner. What it does mean is that you should have an honest conversation with your doctor about alcohol, your medications, and your personal health history. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism recommends that adults 65 and older limit themselves to no more than 1 standard drink per day and no more than 7 per week. If you're on multiple medications, especially pain medications, sleep aids, or blood pressure drugs, even that may be too much. Your doctor is the right person to guide you on this one. So let's bring all of this together, because there's a single most important thread running through everything we've talked about today. Your body after 60 is not a broken body. It's a body that has adapted, that has carried you through decades of life, and that is now asking for something slightly different from you. It metabolizes alcohol more slowly. It's more vulnerable to bacteria and undercooked food. It's more sensitive to sodium. It responds more severely to blood sugar spikes. It's taking medications that interact with things like grapefruit and alcohol in ways it never had to worry about before. None of that is a reason to feel afraid. It's actually a reason to feel empowered, because every single food on this list is something you have the power to reduce, manage, or replace. You don't need to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Start with one thing. Maybe it's reading the sodium content on the soup you buy this week. Maybe it's switching from white bread to whole grain. Maybe it's asking your pharmacist about grapefruit and your medications. One step, one small, real change. That's how this works. The research is clear. The body is remarkably responsive. And taking better care of what you eat isn't just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. More energy, clearer thinking, better sleep, fewer doctor visits, the ability to keep doing the things you love. I'd love to know which of these 7 foods surprised you the most. Was it grapefruit, the processed meats, the ultra-processed foods, and the connection to memory? Let me know in the comments below. Your answer might help someone else who's reading it right now. And if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to our channel. Every single week, we share practical, evidence-based health information made specifically for people like you, because you deserve real answers, not one-size-fits-all advice. Take care of yourself, because you are absolutely worth it.